Today we are looking at cities that aren't perfect but are showing promise for 2024 and beyond. We spend a lot of our time on this channel going over great and not so great places to live. Doing things this way means a lot of great cities that might not have the best stats are ignored, sort of like a middle child. I'm a middle child. My brother was a little cute guy, my sister had all kinds of drama around her, so I had to become a comedian, which led to conversations with my mom where she said, no more dirty jokes in front of your grandmother at dinner. So for this video, we dug a little bit deeper and we found some cities that are affordable, that have some not so great stats that are getting better. Other places on this list are just sort of medium, middle of the road stats. Not terrible, not great. This list is in no particular order, and I hope it's not the only one in this series. If you guys like it and we do more, we'll break it down by region, so let me know in the comment section below. Alright, today we are looking at cities that are showing some promise in 2024. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Richmond, Virginia. Living in Richmond, Virginia is like being in a hipster diorama where the Civil War meets a craft brew festival. It's the only place where you can get a lecture on American history by a dude in a colonial wig who rides a skateboard to do his second job at a vegan barbecue grill. This is the type of city where it's not uncommon to see a guy on a unicycle riding to one of the many coffee places. Richmond is another one of those cities like Austin and Portland, Oregon that likes the catchphrase, keep it weird. So you'll find bumper stickers around there that say, keep Richmond weird. In the last 5 years or so, I've been to Richmond 3 times. Each time, I saw a dude in a park playing a banjo, and it wasn't even the same dude. Richmond is a great place to live. It's got a few problems, nothing major, but it's on the way up. And I think in 2024 and 2025, it'll become more and more of a hip place to be. Not just with the people that want to be hipsters or whatever they call the newest version of the hipsters or hippies or whatever it is these days. One of Richmond's problems is its crime rate. The crime is 20% above the national average. 3 years ago, it was 32% above the national average, so they're moving in the right direction. In reality, 20% is not that bad. Like I've said many times before, you've got cities in this country like St. Louis where it's 220% above the national average. Detroit's like 300% above the national average. The good news is the violent crime rate in Richmond is 6% below the national average. Now, if you want to buy a home here, the average home value is about $330,000. And one good indicator that a city is getting better is if the prices are going up on real estate. Sure, it sucks when prices go up, unless you're trying to sell a house. But if prices are on the rise, that means the city's getting better, or at least not getting worse. In 2022, the prices went up 1.5% in Richmond, Virginia. Number 9, Norwich, Connecticut. This is another city that is deep in history. It's so bad here, you kind of get the feeling that they're not really sure which century they want to live in this town. One moment you're strolling through the marina feeling like you're in a quaint postcard scene, and the next you're getting lost in a modern day shopping plaza that looks like it was designed by someone with a Costco membership and a dream. One interesting thing about Norwich is it's got a lot of old history, and it's got a lot of old weird stories about Benedict Arnold. Remember him? Kind of sold out his country to the British. For a while he was the most hated man in America or the colonies at the time. He eventually moved to Canada, where he became a landlord and a tax collector, and people hated him more there. He eventually had to move to England and change his name. When you look at Norwich's stats, they're pretty good across the board. Nothing spectacular. They don't have any A pluses and they're not the best at anything, but they got good schools, they got good employment numbers, their cost of living isn't horrible, their crime is low, and it's not so crowded where they have a whole bunch of traffic. If you need a bigger city, you got a bit of a drive to New Haven, Hartford, or Providence, Rhode Island, but you got New London right down the road, which is a little bit bigger than Norwich. Their stats are also improving. All their crime stats are below the national average. Their total crime rate is 23% below the national average. 3 years ago, it was even with the national average, so they're getting better. If you want to buy a home in Norwich, Connecticut, you're probably going to be looking at somewhere around $243,000. That's the average home value. Of course, it is a New England state, so those prices go way up. And they've been going up. In 2022, the average home value rose by 8.6% in Norwich, Connecticut. Number 8, State College, Pennsylvania. State College is a town right in the middle of Pennsylvania, and it is where you will find the University of Pennsylvania. And stop typing, I'm joking. University of Pennsylvania is actually in Philadelphia. Penn State is in College Station. Who was leaving that angry comment? I love State College. It's got that, this is weird, and it's my own personal opinion. Most of the cities in Pennsylvania really look like New England cities, even though it's not part of New England, Pennsylvania. They have the same build, they have the same vibe, they have the same look. They're right next to each other. If you didn't know when you went to someplace in Pennsylvania, you would probably still think you're in like New Hampshire or something. And I probably should clarify something. They're not right next to each other, Pennsylvania and New England. New York's actually in between them, but that same part of the country is what I meant. State College is one of the safest cities that has a major university in it. Normally there's a little bit of crime going on, usually college students, maybe, drinking, fighting, stuff like that normally. But the crime rate in State College is actually 56% below the national average, and their violent crime rate is 76% below the national average. And in case you're wondering, you don't have to be shot at or killed for something to be a violent crime. A fist fight can be a violent crime. Throwing a lemon and hitting a guy on a Segway is a violent crime. My cousin's ex-wife learned that the hard way. One of the main problems they have in State College is its 4 seasons. These are the 4 seasons they have at State College. Almost winter, winter, still winter, and road construction. That's what they say. The town has a social calendar that is dictated by the football schedule, where every tackle is discussed and every loss is treated like a loved one's funeral. They like their football here. If you're ever in the area, I would suggest just checking out State College. It is a beautiful town. It's just a nice place to be. And it's getting better. It's getting a little expensive too. The average home value here is $380,000. That's as of second quarter 2023. In 2022, the property values went up 5.6%. So like I said, if the property values are going up, so is the quality of life and the rest of the statistics. Number 7, Appleton, Wisconsin. Living in Appleton, Wisconsin is akin to finding yourself in a Norman Rockwell painting where the American dream is dipped in cheddar. In case you don't know, they make some great cheese in Wisconsin. Appleton, Wisconsin is just down the Fox River from Green Bay, and it's a safe place to live. There's not a lot wrong with Appleton, Wisconsin, other than the cold. It gets bitterly cold here. It gets very snowy, but there are plenty of things to do. It's safe, schools are decent, employment's got good numbers. Their really only negative is that cold weather. If you want to buy a home in Appleton, Wisconsin, the average home value is $257,000, and in 2022 that went up by 10.1%. So like I said before, if it's going up, that means the livability score is pretty good and their future looks bright. Number 6, Ithaca, New York. If you've never heard of Ithaca, you probably should look into it. I love the Finger Lake region of New York. It is one of the most amazing parts of the country for natural scenery. Here, the Leafs perform their annual spectacle that blankets the rolling hills and Cornell University. Yes, they have an Ivy League school here. Winter in Ithaca is not for the faint of heart. If you're a snowshoe enthusiast, or maybe a hot cocoa connoisseur, or even a knitted scarf aficionado, this is a great place for you. Summers never seem to last that long, but they almost make up for the winters that you have to endure in this part of the country. I live in Oregon and we're kind of known for our trees. It's been some years since I've been to the Finger Lakes region, but this is one of the only places I've ever been to where the trees like stand out more than they do here in Oregon. It's weird. It's just a personal thing. I don't know. Years ago, I'd read this like travel brochure for Geneva, New York, which is in the same area. It's just a little bit north of Ithaca. But the author of the brochure said that he grew up in New York City where it just seems like they bulldoze, pour concrete and asphalt with no regard for nature. He said in this part of New York, it's almost like they asked permission from the trees to put streets in. It was really neat. I screwed up how he explained it. It was beautiful the way he said it, but you get the idea. But Ithaca is a place that's a good place to live, but I think it's going to be getting better here in the near future. The average home value here is only $319,000. Now, last year in 2022, it went up by 4.6%. Their cost of living's really not that bad for such a beautiful place. It's only 5% above the national average. Number 5, Greenville, South Carolina. Greenville's a place that's becoming more and more popular. Most of the focus of people moving to South Carolina, it's going to be on the coast, the Charleston, Bluffton area. Not a lot of people move inland unless they're moving to Greenville. What I really like about Greenville in the last few times that I've been there, it honestly feels like they're trying to make this town as appealing as they possibly can. I love their downtown area, their main street. It's all walkable, nice little shops, coffee places, pubs. It's a really nice place to hang out. Normally you find something like this in a smaller town, but not the biggest city, but it's got that little small town feel, especially when you get to the Main Street area, which is well maintained. I have family that lives just outside of Greenville down in Simpsonville and Fountain Inn. They love it. The only real knock on Greenville is it's got some crime. It's 82% above the national average, which 3 years ago, it was 98% above the national average. So they're getting better. Everything else is pretty good. Good employment numbers, their cost of living isn't terrible, their health scores are great, their schools are good, plenty of things to do, mild winters. Their housing is a little expensive for the area. It's like 16% above the national average, but their goods and services, when you look at cost of living, it's even with the national average. If you want to move to Greenville and you want to buy a home, the average home value is about $296,000. In 2022, it rose 3.1%. Number 4, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I love Fort Wayne. It's like the best kept secret of the Midwest. And I know that's going to lead to someone in the comment section saying, well, it's not a secret now since you're telling everyone about it. I think I'm going to fly out to Fort Wayne next April, just do some filming. No real story there or anything like that. It's been a few years since I've been there, and I think I need to go back. One of the best things about Fort Wayne is it's right between a bunch of really lame cities, but far enough away where it really doesn't affect what's going on in Fort Wayne. You got Toledo off to the northeast, you got South Bend off to the northwest, you got Indianapolis down there, you got Muncie, which is south of Fort Wayne. And it's in between Chicago and Detroit to the south. So it's centrally located to a whole bunch of nonsense. Fort Wayne has great rankings in just about everything, but their crime isn't great. It's only 7% above the national average. That's not bad at all. Their housing has good marks, healthcare is amazing, schools are okay, cost of living's low, commute time is low, and they got some jobs. Their employment numbers are actually coming up. 4 years ago, their unemployment rate was about 20% above the national average. Right now, it's sitting at 17% below the national average, which is outstanding. Their average household income used to be 18% below the national average. In 2023, it's 7% below the national average, which is great, especially when you consider their housing costs are low and so is their cost of living. If you want to buy a home in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the average home value is about $217,000. I was poking around Zillow and I found plenty of older homes, nice, look decent, for about $175,000. That is not bad. And that's even after the prices went up 7.3% in 2022. Number 3, Youngstown, Ohio. I know, put your teeth back in your mouth. I said Youngstown, Ohio. It's not too often people are saying positive things about Ohio, unless you're in a conversation about the most unique flags. Yes, Ohio has the only flag that is not a rectangle. I like Youngstown. It's like this unique blend of industrial heritage and natural beauty. This was once a thriving steel town, and it's been reinventing itself over the last few decades, and that effort seems to have picked up steam, I would say, in the last 5 or 6 years. So Youngstown has some crime. That's their only real knock. It's 36% above the national average, but here's the thing. 5 years ago, it was 140% above the national average. That is outstanding. Their employment numbers aren't the greatest, but they're not terrible, but their cost of living's low, their commute time's low, they have plenty of things to do, their health score is great, their schools are okay, housing, pretty good. And here's the best part about Youngstown, Ohio. The average home value is $52,000. You heard me right. I didn't forget to say 200, or I didn't forget to say 152. I said $52,000. That means the average American family, if they spent money on nothing else, could buy a home outright here in 1 year. Now, part of the reason that's so low is they've got a lot of rundown homes, so that kind of drops down. Realistically, you can get a decent livable home here for about $75,000. That is still dirt cheap. An amazing home here would go for like $300,000. But their prices are that low, and in 2022, it went up by 1.4%. So it was actually cheaper in 2021. Number 2, Hickory, North Carolina. Hickory's a place we never talk about. I think early on when I was doing this channel, I did a video and Hickory came up, but we haven't talked about it at all since then. Hickory's not the best place to live, but it's getting better. One of their biggest problems is their crime rate. Right now, it's about 106% above the national average. 2 years ago, it was 130 above the national average, and 5 years ago, it was 157% above the national average. So they are definitely moving in the right direction. Their problem is They've got a lot of property crime, not much violent crime, but the property crime's pretty high, and that's what they're trying to crack down on now. The good news about that, it makes it very affordable. The cost of living in Hickory, North Carolina is about 6% below the national average. Their housing costs are about 19% below. If you don't know where Hickory is, it is northwest of Charlotte, and it sits right on Lake Hickory, which means there's plenty of things to do around this city. I honestly think with the popularity of North Carolina right now and what's going on down in Charlotte and it's gaining popularity, I think Hickory right now is a little gem that if you wanted to get in and buy a house right now, this is a great spot to do it. I don't think the housing is going to be as cheap as it is right now in the next 2 years. I'm sure it's going to go up at a pretty good rate. If you want to buy a house in Hickory, North Carolina, it's going to run you about $277,000. And in 2022, it went up 3.9%. All right, before we get to number 1, if you're looking to move to any one of the towns on this list, there's a link for Home and Money in the description area below. That's a website that'll help you get in touch with a real estate agent wherever you want to move in the United States. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Yes, North Carolina is a twofer on this one. Living in Winston-Salem, North Carolina offers a unique blend of historical charm and modern innovation. The city is known as the Twin Cities for its dual heritage. There's a lot of history and culture in and around Hickory, North Carolina. It sits in what is known as the Piedmont Triad. The Triad is named for the 3 largest cities in the region: Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point. If you want to buy a house here, it's not too expensive. The average home value is $242,000. I poked around Zillow. You could honestly get a decent home here for $200,000, maybe a little bit less than $200,000. But the real estate here has gone up a little bit. In 2022, it jumped 3.7%. Still, it's affordable for the average American. I know no matter what price I give you, it's going to be unaffordable to someone, and that's unfortunate, but I'm looking at what the average Americans make when I say that. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.